Hello, fellow chefs. Time to cook. Another recipe we found online. It's a honey garlic beef rice bowls. It actually requires a slow cooker in the main recipe, but I don't think you need all these other all this other equipment to just cook. You can just have a pot and put it on low, and it's the same as a slow cooker. So what you're gonna need to get started here is I'm doubling my recipe, but I'll give you everything you need for one version of it. You're gonna need 1 cup of stock, beef or chicken, a fourth cup of honey, half a fourth cup of brown sugar, 2 tablespoons sodium sauce, 1 teaspoon Worcestershire sauce, 6 cloves of garlic minced, and 2 to 3 pounds of beef roast. And if you don't want that, you can just use ground beef. So, we start with the easiest steps first to keep ourselves going. You fill your pots with the beef stock. Then I chopped up to mince the garlic. I'm adding that in now. And, if you don't feel like chopping up garlic every time, if you have some garlic seasoning around, you can definitely use that as a substitute. And that helps a lot if you're making sauces or vinaigrettes like we'll make later in this recipe. This is the brown sugar I had. When it sits in your cabinet for a long time, after you open it a while, it can start to solidify. If that's the case, you can just kind of heat it up. There's a fourth cup brown sugar. Either, in the microwave, or you can, if you have it in a bag, you can set it in some hot water for a while, just to get it, a little bit more easier to work with. Same with honey. If you buy some natural honey and it's real thick, like my honey has turned into, because it doesn't have all the preservatives in it, you can also just set it in a bowl of hot water and just let it loosen up. Maybe something to do the day before if you know your honey is rock solid. This way you can see it's kind of thick and chunky here. And I use the spoon to make sure I get as much as I can. And another fourth a cup of honey there. Yeah, I'm doing double portions here. Sometimes it's best not to use one giant pot unless your pot's wide enough. I probably have 4 pounds of meat, so I just broke it up into 2 pots. So if you want to double up your recipe, that's what you can do. I'm just adding 2 tablespoons of soy sauce here. And don't forget about the teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce. And then you're going to want to mix it around, especially if your honey was thick, because it's kind of just sitting on the bottom here. I'll tilt the pan. You can see it there. I just like to make sure it becomes all one solution. And I decided the fork wasn't working too well, so I decided to use a spoon here to mix things up. And that worked a lot better. You just keep mixing until you don't feel honey stuck to the bottom anymore. And once you do that to both, you want to put your beef in there. If you don't have beef roast, you can just use ground beef. And that's what I did. Just got some from the local butcher. That's why it's in this nice little individual packet. That's just a pound. And then I add another pound. And I just flatten it a little bit to make sure it's, submerged. It's going to be best for the recipe. And then what I would recommend for this, if you don't have a slow cooker, you can use a pot like I'm using. And if you have a gas or electric stove, you can just set it to low or set it just right above low and cook it for 8 hours. Or you can raise the temperature, cook it for less. I recommend, I guess, maybe about halfway. You can flip it if you have the time to, but it shouldn't really matter. And then once I got those on the stove and I got those going, I got my rice going next. I don't have a rice cooker. I think it's also pointless to use. I mean, they might have its uses, but a pot and water is just fine. And I used a pound of rice. I kind of like to keep a rule of thirds there, so it's like 2 parts water, 1 part rice, if that makes sense. And then you just turn that up on high until the water starts boiling for your rice. And once it's just about there at boiling, I cover it with a lid, reduce to low. And then I usually cook it for about 20 minutes or longer if it's brown rice. 15 minutes or less should be good for white rice. And then what I'm doing here is, since my meat's going to be cooking all day, I'm just cooling down the rice by dumping all this cold water over it so it stops cooking. And then we're just going to put it back in the pot. We're going to store it in the fridge, for later when our meat's finally done. We can mix together our rice bowls. Now we got all of our vegetables here. We got cucumbers, we got peppers, and we got carrots. And you can cut them any way you want. But here, you can see I just cut up the peppers in long slices, and I cut up the cucumbers in the long slices. And what I did that you might have noticed is I cut the cucumber in half first, and I spoon out the inside. And that's just so your cucumber becomes all watery and gushy. And then I just use a skinner to skin the carrots and just have those thin slices in the recipe. Now we're going to start making our vinaigrette. And a lot of times with any recipes that are sauces or vinaigrettes, I at least double or triple them no matter what I'm making, the portion size, because I always feel like you never have enough. So the original recipe calls for 2 tablespoons olive oil, 2 tablespoons rice vinegar, 1 tablespoon soy sauce, 1 tablespoon brown sugar, there it is again, half a teaspoon of sesame oil, some ground pepper, and a clove of garlic minced. But as you can see here, I use garlic powder because I just feel like it mixes in a lot better than the clove of garlic. And since I used all my cloves of garlic earlier when I made the 2 broths for the ground beef, I didn't feel like cutting more. So it doesn't hurt to have some good substitutes ready when you don't want to do more cutting. And the best part about this vinaigrette, or I say the smart thing to do with the vinaigrette, is for your recipes later on, you can keep it separate. You can have a nice little separate container instead of pouring it over your meal. It's always more fresh, especially if you're reheating later on in the week. You can just have the vinaigrette on the side, and then once you're eating your lunch, pour it on over all of your ingredients instead of letting it sit in there, because sometimes the flavor might dissipate, or it might make your food start going bad, especially if you're trying to push your meals to 4 or 5 days instead of 3. And here you just got to make sure you mix things together so they all blend nicely. And then finally, here we are after 8 hours of cooking. Here's what our meat looks like. What's best to do here, especially if you didn't break it up as it was cooking, is just take a spatula, whatever you think works best, and just break up your meat into a bunch of parts. That'll make it easier to portion it out to all your containers if you're meal prepping. If not, you probably don't need to worry about it. Your meal's going to be great no matter what. And then you just want to drain all that. You can pour it through a strainer into the pot if you want to save the stock. Maybe use that for a soup later or something. Probably has lots of flavor in it. And here we are just portioning all our meals. Helps to, push all the rice to one side. Maybe push the meat to another side and maybe put the vegetables in the middle. But you can just scatter everything if you don't mind. Or it might be best if you put the meat on one side, the rice on one side, and put all your vegetables over the rice. And then you can pour the vinaigrette over that later on so it soaks into your rice. Just a tip for you. And I would say this honey beef actually had a lot of flavor. So you're going to want to give this recipe a try. Let me know what you think and leave a comment on the video. Thanks for watching.